So, good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for having the will to listen to me for about 25 minutes. The first thing we're gonna watch is a video about Obama, your president, talking about Morocco. So let's watch this video and then we continue.
I also know that Islam has always been a part of America's story. The first nation to recognize my country was Morocco. In signing the Treaty of Tripoli in 1796, our second president, John Adams, wrote, "The United States has in itself no character of enmity against the laws, religion, or tranquility of Muslims." Since our founding, American Muslims have enriched the United States. They have fought in our wars, they have served in our government, they have stood for civil rights, they have started...
So that's it. So, as you saw in the video, Morocco is the first country to recognize the independence of USA. We're going to talk about this in details. So, Morocco's history spans over 5,000 years. This country had witnessed mass movements from different groups and peoples, including the Phoenicians, Carthaginians, Romans, Vandals, and Byzantine. The Phoenicians established trade centers along the coast of Morocco, as you see there. The first settlements of the newcomers were founded in Shelda, Lexus, and Mogador in the 6th century before Christ. They were trading with the natives and engaged with them in commercial relations. Many dynasties emerged with the coming of Islam: the Idrisid, Umayyad, Almoravid, Almohads, Marinid, Wattasid, Idrisid. I will talk in details about these dynasties in the Islamic period. So I'm dividing here my lecture into 3 parts. The first one, I will cover the pre-Islamic period, and then the Islamic period, and the last one will be about the colonization period. So with the Arab invasion in the 7th century, the natives, mainly Berbers, converted to Islam and joined the Arabs in the conquest of Spain in 711. They ruled Spain for many a century before they were expelled in the beginning of the 13th century in what is known as the Conquest. Owing to the interior conflicts between the tribes, Morocco could never witness a unified country or a lasting peace. The 7th century witnessed the first unified country in the history of Morocco. By the beginning of the 19th century, new powers such as France, Spain, Portugal, Germany, Italy, Britain, and other nations showed or revealed their interest in colonizing Africa, and especially I'm talking here about Morocco. So they had an agreement that divided between them Morocco, France colonizing the middle of Morocco, and Spain colonizing the north and the south of Morocco, the Sahara, known as Spanish Sahara. The French protectorate was imposed on Morocco in 1912, signed by the representative of France and Sultan Moulay Abd in 1912. The exile of Mohammed V, King of Morocco, protests increased against the exile of Mohammed V in 1953, which forced the French to sit back the king to his position. Now I will talk about the pre-Islamic eras. I'm talking about here Carthaginians, Phoenicians, the Romans, Vandals, Visigoths, and other groups that came to Morocco because of its strategic place. So as mentioned earlier, Morocco was not united as a country, and there were long wars between the tribes. The Berbers have always remained a rebellious people who never succumbed easily to foreign powers. However, this division and wars between the tribes exposed the country to invasion by other powers, mainly by the Phoenicians in the 12th century before Christ. They controlled many coasts and established cities on the new colonized places. The new settlers founded cities like Lexus, Tangier, Rabat, Asila, and Essaouira. In about 500 before Christ, their main purpose was not to get as many lands as they could, but their main purpose was to secure places to anchor their ships. So that was the main purpose of the Phoenicians, and not to get lands. That's very important. Later, the Phoenicians were defeated by the Carthaginians, who became a major power in the region, establishing many colonies along the coast by Hanno, the explorer and king of Carthage, 440 before Christ. The Carthaginians enslaved the Berbers, the natives of Morocco, and pushed them to work in their lands. The nomadic Berbers, who were living in the independent territories, revolted against them with the help of the rivals and managed to overthrow them. The Carthaginians were conquered by the Romans, who destroyed their kingdom in 146. By the falling of the Carthaginians' empire to the Roman one, Morocco was governed locally. But this didn't last for a long time. The Romans conquered in the north of Africa and founded some cities in Morocco like Bolivis. In Arabic, it's Walid. The city was founded near Fez. It was founded in the 3rd century by the Romans, and it was founded in a fertile agricultural land. And if you visit Morocco now, you can see the remaining of these cities. In 455, the Vandals, this is another group, with the decline of the Roman Empire, crossed from Spain to the north of Morocco, Tangier, and claimed some territories in it. I'm quoting here, about the Vandals. They were Christians of the Arian Creed and launched many campaigns against the Roman Catholic churches and the Manichaeans. Later they were defeated, the Vandals, by the Byzantine general Belarius in 533. When Justinian, king of Byzantium, wanted to revive the glories of the Roman Empire, he was fiercely resisted by the Berbers and the army of Morocco, or the tribes of Morocco. Sorry. The Visigoths, this is another group also that came to Morocco. The Visigoths invaded the north of Morocco, again in the 7th century. The ports, seizing the ports of Ceuta and Tingis, today Ceuta and Tangier respectively. They are still colonized until now by Spain. For all the conquerors mentioned here, Morocco is a strategic country situated in the north of Africa along the Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea. This location was appealing to this power so they can use it, because the ports of Morocco were very important in the trade. So the nation or the empire that seized these ports will certainly govern other issues. So these are the main powers that invaded Morocco or came to Morocco in this period. Now, the second period is the Islamic period. starting from the 7th century. The first Arab conquerors of Morocco were the Umayyad, led by Uqba ibn Nafi' in the end of the 7th century. I'm quoting here, in 705, this region became a province of the Muslim Empire, then ruled from Damascus by the Umayyad Caliphs, Khalifa, 661-750. Under their rule, Berbers, Amazigh, that's another name for Amazigh, okay, converted to Islam and embraced its principles that call for equality and justice. And by the 5th century, the majority of the indigenous Berbers adopted Islam as their religion without being forced to do so. They were neither, I'm quoting here, they were neither forcefully converted to Islam nor systematically missionized by their conquerors. However, they revolted against the Umayyad when they felt they were treated as second-class citizens. Derived by a desire to establish a characteristically Islamic country, Ishaq ibn Abdul Hamid, a chief of the Araba tribes, called Idris ibn Abdullah to settle at his seat of government in Walid, the city I talked to you about before. Idris the First. So Idris the First is the first ruler of Morocco. He is the first one to establish a country in this part of the world. Idris the First. And with him we will see the birth of the first country or dynasty in the history of Morocco. Idris the First, 788-791, was the first ruler of Morocco. He attacked the Berbers in Wad Fez, smashing them and founding a new city called Fez, which is the old city or the oldest city in the world, Fez. After the assassination of Idris I by Abbasids, his son Idris II claimed power and nominated himself the Imam of Awram in 803. He started building Fez in 809 with the help of Arabs and made it an influential Arabic capital. Later, Idris II divided his kingdom on his 13th son, who engaged in endless wars that led to the defeat of the Idrisis and thus to the end of their rule of Morocco by the revolutionary Berbers tribes. This event marked the beginning of the Berber dynasty. So that's the end of the Idrisid country and the beginning of another dynasty, which is the Berber dynasties. We're giving detail about this. About 1035, confederation of tribes from Sanhaja led an Islamic revolt that overthrew the Idrisid. This group, called Al-Morabids. Al-Morabids means veiled men, was strictly driven by a motive to purify religion, and this reminds us of the Puritan society in the American history. The movement's leader, Abdullah Muyasi, was a Sanhaja religious scholar from southern Morocco. They attacked the north of Morocco. Crossing the Atlas with their leader Yusuf ibn Tashfin. They established Marrakesh as their capital in 1062, and their empire reached Spain in the north and Senegal in the south. Yusuf's empire stretches from Irbo to Senegal and from the Atlantic coast of Africa to the borders of Tunisia. So this is, see, that's a huge empire stretching to the north of Spain and the south near the Senegal and east to Tunisia. The year 1147 marked the end of Almoravids when the king Ishaq ibn Ali was killed in Marrakesh by, quoting here, the Almohads who replaced them as a ruling dynasty both in Morocco and Al-Andalus. Al-Andalus is the north part of in Europe, that is Spain. It's called Portugal, Spain. That's called Al-Andalus. The Almohads were also Berbers who established a Muslim Berber state in Termel. The chief Ibn Tomar launched attacks on Almoravids and defeated them, stretching his kingdom to Al-Maghrib and Al-Andalus. His successor Abdul Ghumni continued his war against Almoravids and defeated them in their capital Marrakesh. Yaqub Mansur won the Battle of Al-Arqus, in Arabic Al-Araq, July 18, 1195. In Rashid Madrid, Almohads by turn were crushed and replaced by the Marinids. The Marinids, this is another dynasty. The Marinids, this name means the people whose livestock died. That's the significance of the name. So they were looking for establishing a kingdom or their own country. And they were nomadic people. The Marinids were nomadic Berbers who overtook Fez, nominating it as their capital in the beginning of the 13th century. By the mid of the 14th century, they declared a war on Spain. Thus, the Marinid dynasty then, I'm quoting here, tried to extend its control to include the commercial traffic of the Strait of Gibraltar. Not there. To this end, they declared war on the Christians and successfully occupied the cities of Rota, Algiers, and Gibraltar, surrounding for the first time Tarifa. Tarifa is a city in Spain. In 1294. The Marinids Empire stretched to reach Tlemcen with the Sultan Abu Hassan Ali, who captured the Abdul Wahid capital of Tlemcen. The Marinids. They built Islamic schools, madrasas for the education of people in the service of the government. I'm quoting here from Edith Wharton. They built Islamic. It was under the Marinids, Sultan that Fez became the center of Morocco, learning and industry, a kind of Oxford with Birmingham annexed. So it was very important, and they care a lot about education and science and learning and all this. With the decline of the Marinids' power, the Wattasid, another dynasty, launched a revolt in Fez in 1465 and killed the last Marinid Sultan Abu Muhammad Abdul Haq. The Wattasid did not succeed in protecting the coast of Morocco from the invasion of the Portugal and other powers. They were equally, I'm quoting here, unable to consolidate the empire. So that in 1415, Portugal was able to occupy the town of Quetta, in Arabic Ceuta, and by 1530 had gained control over important harbors on the Atlantic coast of Morocco. Consequently, they were supplanted by the Saadians. This is Marrakesh. This is Almohad Empire. This is Tilmil Mosque. This is the Marinid Empire. So you saw here, as you see here, it diminished this time. And here, Wattasid ruled, and here the Saadian Empire. The Battle of Tedla in 1554 between the Wattasid and the Saadians, led by Muhammad al-Sheikh, revealed the weakness of the Wattasid rule. During that time, Arabs and Jews were expelled from Spain in the movement called as Reconquista. With the deterioration of the Saadians, another power emerged on overthrow the Saadians. That power was the Alawid dynasty. Before that, I want to talk to you about a very important battle that took place between the Saadians and Portugal. In 1578, there was a fierce battle between Morocco and Portugal that changed history. It's called the Battle of the Three Kings, or the Battle of Wad al-Makhazin. And the three kings who were involved in this battle were Sebastian, the Portuguese king, Al-Mansur Tahbi, and Al-Mu'tasim Billah. Al-Mu'tasim Billah was the king of Morocco, and he was in Marrakesh. And his brother, Al-Mansur Tahbi, was in Marrakesh. And Sebastian was the king of Portugal. He was a young king, very courageous and ambitious king, and he wanted to invade Morocco. And we have another king, the traitor, the deposed king. His name was Al-Mutawakkil, and he was living in Tangier. And this battle took place in city called Al-Qasr al-Kabir. Between these armies. Al-Mu'tasim Billah was a very clever king, and he lured the king of Portugal to come to Morocco and fight him in Larache. The deposed king called Sebastian, the king of Portugal, to come and help him to overthrow the king of Morocco, Al-Mu'tasim Billah. Sebastian crossed from Portugal to Tangier, and he joined the deposed king, Al-Mutawakkil. And then the king, Al-Mu'tasim Billah, sent a message to Sebastian telling him, look, I have passed through 16 stages. All you need to do now is just to pass one stage, and we're gonna meet and fight. So when the king Sebastian read the letter, he was very angry, and he talked to his advisors, and they said, no, you shouldn't have that. That may be a trap. But he refused to listen to them. He decided to come to Al-Qasr al-Kabir and fight Al-Mu'tasim Billah. As I said, Al-Mu'tasim Billah was very clever. And Sebastian, with the deposed king, the traitor in Tangier, they crossed and they came to Larache. And in their ways, they crossed a bridge. This bridge links two banks of Wad, or river called Wad al-Makhazin. So the king, Al-Mu'tasim Billah, ordered his brother. He told him, once they cross the bridge, I want you to destroy this bridge. So when they want to come back, they will not find their way to come back. So, and there is a really high time. And so the king, Sebastian, were very equipped. His army is very equipped, cavalry, infantry, and weapons. They crossed. Sebastian and the king, Al-Mutawakkil, the deposed king, they crossed the bridge. And Al-Mansur Tahbi immediately destroyed the bridge. So there is no place to escape to. So it's the only bridge that links the two banks of the river. And the battle started. And before that, Al-Mu'tasim Billah was seriously ill before the battle started. So he couldn't take this battle, or he couldn't participate in the battle. He was giving orders from his tents and talking to his brother, Al-Mansur Tahbi. And he said, if I'm dead, don't tell the soldiers that I'm dead. Just go and fight. I'm still alive. So he did. Mu'tasim Billah died before the battle started. King Sebastian was killed in the battle, and the deposed king Al-Mutawakkil fled. He ran away. But when he came to the bridge, there was no bridge. So he fell in the river and drowned. And his body was taken by the Mansur Dehbi and others and showed it to people. This is the destiny of the traitors. So this battle has consequences on the history of Morocco, because this battle could have changed the history of Morocco. The army of Morocco defeated the army of Sebastian, the Portuguese armies, which was supported by other armies from Italy, from Spain, and from other powers. So in history, this is a very, very significant and important battle that changed the history of Morocco and also the history of Europe, because at that time, the major powers, Spain and Portugal, they just stopped thinking of invading Morocco for many centuries. So this battle gives peace of 2 centuries to Morocco. The Alawite, so not talking about this now, the next dynasty is the Alawite, and it's the last one. The Alawite name was originated from the founder Moulay Ali Sharif under the rule of his son Moulay Rashid, 1664-1672. Morocco was united again under one flag. With the death of the Saadian Sultan Ahmed al-Mansur, Al-Hassan al-Dakhil was brought by indigenous people of Tafilat from Al-Hijaz, considering him to be a descendant of the Prophet. They wanted him to be their Imam, chief of believers. By the beginning of the 19th century, the Alawite dynasty, or Sultan Muhammad VI and Hassan I, tried to establish trade centers with Europe and the United States. The country witnessed many changes as shown below. The army and administration were also modernized to improve control over the border and Bedouin tribes. With the war against Spain came direct involvement in European affairs, although the independence of Morocco was guaranteed in the Conference of Madrid. By the beginning of the 20th century, the major powers at that time, France and Spain, revealed their interest in colonizing Morocco as a strategic place and country full of mines and other resources. Here I'm going to the last part of my lecture is about the colonization period. I will try to be brief, just a few minutes and we'll finish. Here we have to mention a very important conference in Berlin, Germany. This conference was held in 1884 and divided Africa between the major powers at that time, namely France, Spain, Britain, Italy, Portugal, and Germany. So they divided Africa, as you see here in the map, piece by piece. So France would colonize, as you see there, the middle of Morocco. And Spain would colonize the north and the south of Morocco. And as you see here, Mauritania was a part and parcel of Morocco throughout its history, before gaining its independence from France in 1960. And the so-called Sahara, Western Sahara, was always their history a part and parcel of Morocco also. So this conference in Berlin divided Africa between these powers. And in this conference, something funny happened in this conference when they were dividing the nations and countries among them. So you take this and I take this, you take this. They didn't agree upon Morocco. So all the powers wanted to get or to colonize Morocco. Germany said, no, I want a part of the emperor, the emperor of Germany. He said that he wanted a part of Morocco. And he wanted Tangier. Tangier in the north of Morocco. So this city, we will see later that it was administered, or it was given an international status. Later on it was administered by 26 members. 22 of them were appointed by Spain and France. 3 of them were appointed by the Sultan of Morocco. 1 of them was appointed by the rabbi in Morocco. So, they divided it in 1884, and after the conference, few days later, Spain hurried and colonized the south of Morocco in 1884. France was afraid that Spain may take other parts of Morocco, so also France in 1902 colonized Mauritania, the south of Morocco, in 1902. In 1906, France would enter Oujda, a city in the east of Morocco, on the borders between Algeria and Morocco, and thus the beginning of colonizing Morocco. This will also, we see, that would engender problems that we're still suffering from up till nowadays. Because the Western Sahara, when Spain withdrew from the Western Sahara, there was a group there that claimed that Sahara belongs to them. That is, this group was named Polisario. They said, this is our part, this is our country. And they wanted to establish a country there. But Morocco managed to get his land back, and his part of Morocco. Because as we saw before, that was always a part and parcel of Morocco. And the indigenous people who were living there, whenever they had a problem, they would go to the Sultan in the center of Morocco and talk to him and try to solve the problem. So, and that showed that they were a part of, the Sahara was a part and parcel of Morocco. So they divided that, and in 1912, French imposed protectorate on Morocco, signed by the representative of France and signed also by the Sultan Moulay Abdul Hafid. So they signed this, and a new era in the history of Morocco started at that time. So as I said, on March 13th, 1912, the Sultan signed the Treaty of Fez, putting Morocco under the French protectorate. The occupation lasted for 44 years, during which there were rebellions in the Sahara. Here we have a fighter who was called Sheikh Ma'laini, and in the north there was Muhammad bin Abd Karim al-Khattabi, who victoriously fought the Spanish armies and defeated them in the Battle of Anwar. By the beginning of the 1950s, the French protectorate brought Muhammad V to his throne after spending some years in exile. That is, after he spent some years in exile. On the 2nd March 1956, Morocco gained its independence from France and became an independent nation, starting a new battle with development. Morocco has been, along its rich and lively history, a strategic place that kept appealing people and groups from different corners of the world. The influence of these powers could be smelled in the architecture of the country, the customs, people, and artisanal products. The most powerful influence among these was the French language, which remains the second language in Morocco. With this long and rich history, Morocco remains a place of diversity, owing to a succession of different ruling powers, starting from the Phoenicians and ending with the French. Both of them started with F. French Phoenicians. In other words, these groups, including the Romans, the French, the Spanish, Arabs, and other groups, have contributed to making Morocco a land of diversity and coexistence. The mixture of these groups, Vandals, Phoenicians, Carthaginians, Visigoths, Berbers, Spanish, French, all these groups, gives rise to a very important question, which is, what is identity? Who is an American? Who is a Moroccan? Who is a British? Who is Spanish? It's that mixture of different groups that met at certain points of history to give a society of different races and peoples. For centuries, I conclude with this quote from Edith Frank. For centuries, for ages, North Africa has been what America is, the cleaning house of the world. Thank you very much.